All righty. Well, thanks everybody for joining on. We've got quite a few people that have joined so far. I'm sure we'll have a few more join pretty soon here. But since it's past 1 already, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. To introduce myself, my name is Ben. I've been at Mozenda for about 2 years. I've seen the tool do all sorts of incredible things, and over the last few months, we've been developing this training program to help our customers see the same results as they use it. So over the past few months, we've been really focusing in on some of the core aspects of our tool, some of the most important features, both in terms of the basics, and as well, we've been focusing in on what optimizations can be made to pretty much all agents to enhance the level of data that you're getting and the level of your agents. So over the course of these trainings, we'll be essentially going over some of the basics as well as some optimization tactics to, with the goal to help each of you get to a point where you feel very, very confident in using our tool. We already know that it's really powerful. There's a lot you can do with it. A lot of you have already seen that, but we want you to really be able to achieve its maximum potential. So my goal is that by the end of the 5-course training, all of those of you who have participated throughout the whole week will feel very confident in using the tool. That being said, I do also want to mention that you won't be alone. Even though we hope that each of you will become Mozenda experts, we do have our support team, and I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. They are available from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and they're available for any quick questions you might have, or if you're stuck on an agent that you just haven't been able to get past a certain part of it, they're there to help you find solutions to those problems. And then for those of you who are enterprise licenses, you do have an assigned customer success manager. If you're an enterprise license and you don't know your customer success manager, please reach out to somebody on our team as soon as possible, and we'll get you in touch with them, because they're there to help you, just as their title says, to help you have success using the tool, whether that be fielding really large scale support type issues that just require an advanced level of knowledge about the tool, or whether that simply be to help you decide how you're going to use the tool in your processes. But with that, they'll be here to help you. But we're hoping as well that each of you can get to a point where you feel very confident in using the tool. So today, well, actually, I did want to show you one thing before we get started today. For those of you, I've noticed that we have a lot of people signed up for this first training course, but not quite as many on the rest of them. So just to kind of explain how these trainings work, is each of these sessions will build off the last one. So today we're going to be going over basics, very basic intro to Mozenda knowledge. And then tomorrow we're going to start with optimizations. So it's important that if you've registered for today, make sure to go to the rest of these training courses just as you did for the first one, and you can go in and register for each one of them. Each one will cover a different variety of topics. So it's important to attend each of them. It's not just a repeat each time. So I'm hoping we can see as many of you there as they're here today, and more, hopefully. So, okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. On today's agenda, as you can see, we're going to be, oops, let me switch these. Perfect. So we're going to be giving a brief overview of Mozenda. For those of you who may be still trying out our software, I'll give a little bit of a deeper description of that. We'll also be reviewing the glossary that I sent out. I shared a folder with everybody who signed up until a little bit earlier this morning. If you didn't get that email, that's probably because you haven't, that you just recently signed up. So I'll try to get that out to you as well after the call today. We'll also be going over a use case. Throughout the week, we've picked out a use case that we believe showcases some of the most important aspects of our tool. So we'll be going over that, and then by the end of the day, we'll jump into building a basic agent, and hopefully we'll be able to build the entire basic agent, and it'll work to an extent. It might hit certain errors, but from that, we will work the rest of the week on optimizing and making it the best possible agent that we can. So first thing that we're going to do, let me go ahead and open up another PowerPoint that I have. All right, so this is our glossary. Many of you will already be familiar with a lot of these terms. The reason I bring them up is simply because as we're going, we're going to be moving pretty quickly. So it's important that as much as possible, we be on the same page, that the terms I'm using that you are each familiar with. And as we do get into the agent builder, by the way, feel free to follow along on your computer. Like I said, though, we will be moving fairly quickly, so might be easier to just listen. For those of you who want to watch the videos again afterwards, if you reach out to training@mozenda.com, we'll be able to share those videos by request afterwards. All right, so we're going to get started with the glossary. So some of the most common terms of Mozenda are, first off, the word agent. For those of you already familiar with Mozenda, you'll know that we are a data extraction tool specifically via web scraping. So an agent is the actual configuration or set of steps that we use to actually perform the data scraping. So we're telling a process essentially of what fields to go capture, what actions to go do. The agent dashboard, which I'll show you in just a second, is the area in the web console where an agent can be run, modified, published, scheduled, viewed, etc. So the web console, let me go ahead and exit out of our glossary for a second. This is your web console. This is the online portal that you can access anywhere that you have internet connection, really. You can come over here once you log in to the agents button and then the all agents option right there, just right here. And when you click into an agent, so we'll just click on a random one right now, it will take us to the agent dashboard. The agent dashboard is where you see data that an agent has collected. It's where you see how to set settings for your agent, how to publish your data, how to export it. So this is where you really interact with an agent on a settings level. And then in the agent builder, which I'll show you in a few minutes, that's where you actually build and test agents. So that's the agent dashboard. We also have our agent list, which we already mentioned. Then there are also collections. So collections are different than agents, and it's important to recognize the distinction between those two terms. A collection is, as it says here, the term used to describe where a data set is stored. So within the web console, you have another tab called collections. Now, every agent that runs collects data and stores it in a collection. So you'll see that same Amazon agent that we have. If you go over to collections, there's an Amazon collection. But they have different IDs. It's 1013 here, and then in all agents, it's 1014. So this is the agent ID, and then in the collections tab, this is the collection ID. So every agent will have a collection that it's associated to, but not every collection will have an agent assigned to it. For example, this one down here at the bottom has its own, you'll see it doesn't have a gear right here. It's just a standard collection. So this is a list of terms that I've inputted by scratch to create a collection that you could use later within other agents. But it's important to recognize that distinction. Similar to agents, there's a collection list where you see, which we just saw, where it shows us all of the collections. So now we get to the DOM, the document object model. And this is where sometimes people might get a little bit worried when they start using Mozenda because they might not be super familiar with what that is. But essentially every web page that we're scraping is built off of an HTML code description. And that is stored in something called a DOM, a document object model, or it can be viewed via a document object model. So everything about Mozenda, the way that it works in the background is that it's going and looking at the HTML, recognizing patterns and creating certain X paths, which we'll go over tomorrow, to find data and then be able to continue finding it for more and more items over time. So the document object model is where we can analyze that, and we'll be going over that by tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the day that we'll start looking at that. Alrighty. So harvesting, that's just the term we use to describe the process of an agent executing its instructions and gathering data. So when you run into the web console, it goes and it's harvesting the data. Premium harvesting is a more advanced form of harvesting. Essentially, certain websites that are more popular, such as Amazon or Google, stuff like that, are very, very popular, also have to be very cautious to ensure that their sites aren't being attacked by malicious software. So as such, they have often overly protective steps taken, essentially, because they'd rather be overly cautious than underly cautious. And from time to time, it will actually block Mozenda if they see a lot of requests coming through. So premium harvesting is an advanced form of harvesting that rotates the IP addresses to ensure that we don't inaccurately trigger those warnings. So I've already showed you the web console. This is where you manage your agents. This is where you manage your data. And then the agent builder, which I'll show you now, that's the fun part. That's where you actually get to go build the actual agents and describe the processes. So it's a desktop software that runs on Windows machines. So those are the two big parts of Mozenda, the web console and the agent builder. So the agent builder, I'm going to go ahead and close our glossary now, can be opened in several ways. One way is from the web console. You can just click this button up here, open Mozenda, and it will open up the agent builder on your computer. So here's our agent builder. It kind of looks like a regular web browser, and that's because at its core, that's what it is. And we'll start digging in here before too long to actually start building our agent. Another way to open an agent is the agent builder is to come over to our agents list and click new agent, which will also open up the agent builder in the exact same way. Third way, if you click on an agent, this is my favorite way because it opens me right to an agent. If we're looking at an agent dashboard, we can come up to the tools menu and click design. And it'll actually open that exact agent in the agent builder for us to work on. So you'll see that it will actually load all the steps that we've made. This is an older agent that I built a while back. So we'll cancel that. And then 1/4, there's a few other ways, but one of the other big ways is you can't see it on my screen because of the way the GoToWebinar shows it, but down on the bottom of your taskbar, if you've installed Mozenda, if you haven't, by the way, up here in this menu right there, you can download the agent builder. But in your taskbar down at the bottom right of your main screen on Windows, you should see a blue box with a white M in it. So that's called the client connector. That's what links the agent builder to your web console. If you right click that and choose settings, it'll give you a box that looks like this. It lets you sign into your account. If you're not signed in, it'll force you to sign in first. But down here is an option where you can set the Mozenda tray icon, so that client connector, to either launch the agent builder or open the web console when it's double clicked. I usually leave it at launch the agent builder, so but a lot of people like it to open the web console, but there's an option here to change that. Okay, so with that, we're gonna move forward. We've kind of given you an overview of Mozenda, what it does, and what the different pieces of it are. So the next thing that we're gonna be going over is actually describing what our use case is. Now, for many customers, I know, especially when they first start using Mozenda, they get really excited about what it can do and want to experiment with it, and so they'll jump straight into the agent builder and go to their website and start trying to gather information just like that. What they don't realize is that oftentimes that can get you kind of in a bad spot, because you'll start building the agent from perhaps the wrong page, or you'll start clicking in the wrong spots, and pretty soon before you know it, your agent's pretty complex when it very likely doesn't have to be. So my recommendation is always, before even opening the agent builder, that you always manually look at the website, inspect what fields you want, take a look at what the flow of the agent would look like if you want to build it. Basically, go through the process manually so that you understand what the agent needs to do. So to do that, we're going to go to Amazon.com. So for the week, we are going to put ourselves in the shoes of an electronics retailer, and we are trying to get ahead of the competition on selling televisions. So one of our purposes for using Mozenda obviously would be to scrape some of our competitors' prices to put on to build a business model off of, a pricing model. So as we come to Amazon, right, which is probably one of our biggest competitors in electronics, we want to know what information they have. We want to be able to get the price if it's there. We want to be able to get it quickly, and we want any other details that might come with it. So you'll notice I went to Amazon.com and I searched for televisions, and we get to our list of televisions. And Amazon's interesting, actually. We might even see it throughout the week, but sometimes the layout will change. Sometimes there will be bullet points over here with more information. So if that happens, we'll get some exciting training on how to kind of adapt our agent to account for that. But for now, we're looking through our data, and we see a few things right off the bat. We see that all of these products have a title, they have a manufacturer, they have an average rating that could be useful, a total number of reviews, a price. Some of them say click to see price. Oops. Some of them say click to see price instead of actually showing the price. So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. So first thing though, we see that some of these are sponsored. And the problem with sponsored listings on certain websites is that often if they're sponsored, it means that they might show up multiple times over and over again on different pages. And so as a user right now, I'm going to make the decision that we don't want the sponsored ones because they'll probably show up in the main results list anyway, and we definitely don't want duplicates. So we're going to go ahead and say we want to try to build our agent such that we don't get the sponsored ads. As far as fields go down here, we are going to want the product name, the manufacturer, average ratings. We're going to have to try to get that 4.4 out of 5. Total number of reviews. Price gets interesting, right, because it's got two of them. It's got the current price and then potentially what it was originally. So we're going to make a decision that we just want that first price. If we scroll down, we're going to see some of them say click to see price instead of actually showing the price. So we're going to make another decision here that if the price isn't there, but it does have the click to see price option, we're going to capture those words. That way we know that as we're looking at the data, if it doesn't have the price, but it does have click to see price, then maybe if we go back to the website, we can get that price if it's interested enough to us. And we'll keep scrolling down. Most of these look pretty good. You just want to make sure that everything looks fairly consistent, that you're not going to be trying to find something that's not there sometimes. But it all looks pretty good so far. Cool. We see a few more sponsored at the bottom. Great. So then you make a decision, right? Well, we don't just want this first page of data. We want several pages. So as a normal user, right, you'd manually come in here and click the next button. And you'd get to page 2. You can actually see up here in the URL, you can navigate to whatever page you want just by changing that. One thing that's interesting is as soon as you've probably each noticed if you've scrolled through Amazon before, you search for something like televisions and you get to maybe page 10 and all of a sudden you start seeing things like this that aren't even actually televisions. Some accessories, some old equipment, some TV guides. So you might make a decision right off the bat that rather than let our agent run for 20 pages, as I'm pretty sure there's 20. Maybe we just want to get 10 pages or 5 pages just to get us started, and that's a decision you can each make individually. For our use case, because we know that we really only need to just see some data, just because we're doing a demo this week, we're just going to get the first 2 pages. So we'll keep that in mind. When we build our agent, we're going to modify to only capture 2 pages of data. So then we know after gathering this information, there's more information if we click on the link to the product details page. So there's a few things we might want to capture here, right? Images, right? So let's say for each product, we want at most 5 images if they're there. Some of the products might only have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but if there's 5, we want all 5. If there's fewer, then we only want however many there are. So we'll keep that in mind. We want to capture that. We'll see a pretty good description down here too, so we'll keep that in mind that we want to try to capture the product description. It's got a few other details about features. As we scroll down, we start to see some other information that might be good. This is comparing it with other products. And as we scroll down, a lot of good stuff. Down here, we get to an option called technical details, a little box down here. It's got the brand name, which appears to be the same as the manufacturer that we mentioned on the previous page, but it might be good to capture this just to confirm that they're the same. It's got the item weight and the product dimensions. So these are pretty valuable fields to capture. So we're going to decide that we also want to try to capture this. Now we do need to be careful because it's possible that this isn't consistent for every item. Maybe not every single one has these details. So that's something that we're going to want to consider. It could potentially break the agent going forward. Okay, so with that, we've kind of outlined what our process looks like. We've outlined what pages we want to go to, what fields we want to capture. So now we're ready to move into the agent builder. So I'm going to open up the agent builder, and kind of, by default, many people will just type in Amazon and then go start a new agent from this page. We already know that this is the page we want to get to that holds the television. So we're just going to copy that, go to our agent builder, and paste and go. We're immediately going to see premium harvesting required. So remember I said some of the more popular sites will require it, and Mozenda will generally alert you if that's necessary. So I'm going to say got it. You do want to know, though, that if you don't have to use premium harvesting, like if Mozenda doesn't force you to use it, try not to use it because it uses more processing credits. It takes 3 times as much. So in order to conserve processing credits, try to use premium harvesting as little as you can. So now we're back to that page that we saw. We're going to go up to the top and click Start a New Agent from this page. All right, so just as a regular, normal user using the tool, you'd start wanting to inspect it, how you would interact with it as a normal user, right? So one of the first things you do, right, is you said, okay, we don't want these sponsored ones, so let's not go anywhere near those. We do want this first one, though. So we're going to click that product name, and because we're starting off a list of items, we're going to choose Capture List. Just as the instructions say, it says to click a similar item. So you want to go click the product name of another one, and you can see how it starts to highlight all the ones below when I do that. One thing you do want to be careful about is often it's better to scroll down and click one a little bit down the list, simply because occasionally if you click one right next to it, it might not gather all of them. And that's because in the background, Mozenda is trying to create patterns to find unique similar data that is similar to the ones that you've already clicked on, essentially. If you click on 2 that are too close together, it might be too narrow of a scope. So usually I like to scroll down a little bit. So I'm going to click right there, and we're going to name this list our product list. And it will automatically create a capture action called product, which we're going to change to be more specific to product name. So you'll see right away we've got a box down here called Captured Text Preview. So these are our agent builder windows that allow a little bit more insight as we're building our agents. So to give you a small preview to that, there's a few windows that are very useful, some that you might not come across as often. Some of the ones that we're going to go over today, I'm going to enable the ones that we're going to use, which are testing results. We won't use XPath today, but we will use these 4 right here, as well as this one up here. This fields window will show us what fields we're capturing in the agent. You'll notice this little pin right here in the top right corner. You can unhook that pin and unpin it, and it will minimize it, and it will only maximize it if you go hover over it again, or you can keep it locked in place. You can move windows around. So if we, for example, are on the Capture Text Preview window, we could pop it out and go put it somewhere else. I like leaving it where it is, though, so we're just going to leave it right there. Okay, so this first one that you'll probably see every time you first build an agent is the Capture Text Preview window. So what that does is it tries to take the details that you're giving it right here and show you a preview of what text is going to be getting gathered as the agent runs. So it may not be an exact match to what you actually get, but it should be very accurate. One reason it might be different is if maybe the page takes a little bit to load and you didn't quite give it the proper amount of time to load it all up. So just keep that in mind. This should give you pretty fair analysis, but the real accurate one is when you come over to testing results. So when you test the agent and click Start, the agent will actually run and gather data, and it will put it into the testing results. Now you can't export it from testing results. You'll need to save the agent to your web console and run it in your web console. But you can see what results it would capture, and testing results should be nearly 100% consistent with the web console results. Now it could be different because, for example, Amazon will often change the order of the products depending on location, depending on who's looking at the data. So you can very easily see different ordered results and testing results than you would see in the web console. The DOM, this is like we mentioned, the document object model. We won't mess around too much with this, but we will a little bit when we look at some of the HTML of the document today, and then especially tomorrow when we look at XPaths. And one very important one that many don't know about quite yet is our navigation request window. So this one is crucial if you want your agent to work as optimized as possible. So as a user, we go to Amazon.com, right, which we believe is one request. But what often we don't see is in the background, there's hundreds of other requests going through. Right here, there's 175 other requests that are happening in the background that we don't even see. Now, you ask yourself, right, well, if all we want are these product details, how important is it that we waste time waiting for all of these requests to come through. And the fact of the matter is that often we have no reason to wait for a lot of those requests. So what request blocking does, and you'll see right here, there's a button called Auto Block Level 1. On Thursday, we're going to be going over request blocking in greater detail. But for now, it's sufficient to just know that if you go to the settings menu, you can change these levels and experiment. Each one's slightly more aggressive than the last. Auto block level 1, when it's enabled, what it'll do is it will automatically try to block certain requests, such as these ones, that are ads or analytics or heat map tracking, things that have nothing to do with the data that you're trying to capture. And so there's no reason not to block them from coming through. So essentially, it will speed up your agent. It'll make your agent less dependent on other resources, which means less strain for you. It's less likely for it to fail. Note that while auto block is running, you'll see a green box over the request blocking option here. So you click that, and it'll open up this window. All of these ones in greens are ones that the Mozenda system is recommending. They're expressions that are related to certain requests that it's suggesting to you that you block. If you save them, that green will go away and it'll just get saved into the agent definition. So one thing I want to stress about this is auto block level 1 should be enabled on every single one of the agents that you build here moving forward. Honestly, probably about 95 to 100% of the time, it will increase the speed of your agent and enhance your agent, even if it might just be slightly. There's a small percentage, under 5%, that every once in a while it may break the agent because particular websites might actually need some of the resources that you're blocking. But most of you who use it will probably never see that situation. So my recommendation is every time you open an agent, you make sure auto block level 1 is on. And then when you're done building the agent, we're going to experiment, as we'll see on Thursday, how to up that level to make sure that we're getting it even quicker and less dependent as possible, as much as we can at least. All right, so these are your windows that you can basically just enhance your ability to use Mozenda, and it gives you greater insight and vision into what's going on. So we'll look at a few more of those when we start optimizing the agent a little bit further. Alrighty, so let's get back to building the agent. So we're getting the product name, as our capture text preview shows. We also knew that we wanted to get the manufacturer. So you can just click on any manufacturer. Since they're all in the same spot, we're going to click on this one. And because we are already in a list, we don't need to choose capture list again. We can just choose capture text. The reason for that is that Mozenda works based on relativity. So if it finds the product title, it will go try to find a manufacturer that is close to that, that is relative to that, essentially. Since each manufacturer is directly below the product name, it's easy for it to find it in each of the lists. So we're going to get manufacturer, and we immediately see that it's got the word by beforehand, which we don't want. So we're going to come over here to capture manufacturer and click on that action. You can either choose refine capture text up here, or you can right click and go to refine capture text, and it will open up this window for you that, just as it sounds, it lets you take the text you're capturing and refine it and format it in whatever way you want. So there's two ways we could get rid of that word by. We could go over to content replacements, click on new text replacement, and note that if you are familiar with regular expressions, you can use regular expressions here as well. We're not going to be using it for our training though. So we're going to say find the word by and replace with nothing. And so you'll see our capture text preview now shows TCL instead of by TCL, because we're removing that word by. Now we could do it that way. Instead, we're going to come over to capture definitions, and there's a few ways we could do this. We could just highlight TCL, and it will realize that there's a space just before it. So we'll emphasize that find the space, and then whatever's after that within percentage signs to denote it is our manufacturer field. Now space isn't very safe in my opinion, so what we're going to do instead, instead of highlighting, we're going to manually type the word by, and then the tool now knows to find the word by, and then whatever is after by is our manufacturer name, TCL. Now there would normally be a space before it, but when additional white space, so trailing or leading spaces are removed in your captures. So we'll hit save there, and we'll now see that all of our manufacturers look a little bit cleaner. So we're ready to move on. So next thing we know that we want is the total reviews. So we're going to click that and choose capture text, and we'll call it total reviews. Note that just by preference, I don't put spaces in my names, but it's definitely allowed, so feel free to do that on your end. So we're capturing these total reviews. One of the first things I notice is that this one that hits over 1,000, has over 1,000 reviews, has a comma in it. Now, this will make a lot more sense on Wednesday when we start talking about views, but when you're working in the web console and you want to treat certain fields as numbers, for example, number of reviews is clearly a numbered field. Currently, it's marked as text, and we'll have to go change that in the web console when we want to make it a number type field. And we'll go over that Wednesday, like I mentioned. But in the meantime, if there's a comma in there, it won't be able to recognize it as a number. So we're going to go to total reviews, refine captured text, content replacements, new text replacement, and say find all commas and replace with nothing. So now when we get to the one that has 3,553, it'll find that comma, remove it, and only capture the actual number. Alrighty, so we're making good time. So let's move on to average rating. So we'll come click right here, click capture text, and the thing that's going to be interesting, right, is what we really want is to hover over it and capture 4.3 out of 5 stars. But there's no hover action within Mozenda, so we're just going to try clicking the stars, capture text, and we'll say average rating and see what happens. So as you can see, it actually still captures 4.4 out of 5 stars. And the reason for that, this is where we're going to look at the DOM. If we come hover over the icons, even though, oops, I got to go enable one setting here, which is auto DOM navigation. This will make it that when you hover over something on the page, it will directly take you there in the DOM. So if I hover over the average ratings, it'll take me there in the DOM, and you'll see that the words 4.3 out of 5 stars, even though we don't see them on the screen, are actually hidden in the HTML. So that's why even though we're clicking on an image, it looks for the inner text in the HTML and is able to find it, giving us 4.4 out of 5 stars. But let's say right away that we don't want 4.4 out of 5 stars. We just want 4.4 out of 5 or /5. So we'll go back and refine captured text. And we'll come over here to new text replacement. We'll say find the words space, out, space, of, space, and replace that with a slash. So now when we go to capture definitions, we'll see 4.4 out of 5 stars. We don't want the stars either, so we're going to come at the end and type star. So to look for the letters STAR, star, we could put the S, but I'm going to put star just in case. And it'll capture everything before that, giving us 4.4 out of 5. So we'll save that, and we'll now see that all of our average ratings are in that same format. Alrighty, next thing that we want is the price. So we'll come and we'll click on the price. You can't see it too well on the webinar, but what you'll see is it tries to highlight over what you're trying to capture. And you'll see right now I'm going to click on 299, capture text, and call it price. And we'll see that it doesn't capture. First of all, we get this element not found in a list. That's because some of the products don't have a price. They have that click to see price option. And you'll see that we're only getting the dollar amount. And the reason is because we only put our mouse such that it only hovered over $2.99 instead of the $299.99. So I'm going to delete this capture, and we're going to try again. This time hovering slightly off to the side, and we're going to see that it actually gets the whole row, including the bad value that we don't want, the previous value. But we'll capture that. When Mozenda, by the way, recognizes certain fields, like it can tell that this looks like a price, it will try to capture it for you, but we're doing everything manually today. So we'll say provide a field name, price, click save. Then we're going to immediately go into the refine captured text tool, and we'll see a pretty weird thing right here. We'll see that it shows the actual price twice and then it shows a space and then the wrong price twice. Oops. As I was highlighting it, it was trying to capture it. So what we want, right, is just what's after that first dollar sign and what's before the second dollar sign. So we're going to put a dollar sign before and after our values here, and we'll see that it is able to identify what is between two dollar signs and capture the value that we actually want. So we will save that. Having a little bit of a lag here. Sorry about this. Can't seem to get that button to work. Oh, we're getting a few issues, so I might have to end up restarting the agent builder. Like I said, we've been having some weird connection issues today, so it's unfortunate. Another one of the pitfalls of having those live webinars, right? All right, so I'm just gonna manually kill it really quick and then restart it. And Mozenda does have an autosave feature, so it should automatically save what we've been working on. In just a few minutes while I do that. Sorry, just give me a few minutes while I pull that up. The good news is that we are making good time, so even with a setback like this, we should still be able to cover everything I was hoping to today. So like I said, it'll give us the option to recover that agent that we were working on. Let that load back up. Okay, so we do see that our refinement saved. So we're getting the right layout, but we're still missing a whole lot of fields because a lot of them don't have prices. So for example, this fifth field, if we scroll down there, so we'll go up to the top. We're skipping sponsor. If you didn't notice already, I should have pointed this out, but see how it's not highlighting the sponsored ones? So Mozenda did actually on its own realize that we didn't include those in our pattern, and that's why it's not keeping them. All right, so we are going to scroll down to our fifth item. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll see this click to see price. So remember our decision, right? If we can't find the real price, we want to find click to see price. So the way we're going to do that is go right click the price action, go to location. And we could reassign the current location, which would essentially overwrite what it's currently looking for and instead capture a new thing that we're going to click on. We don't want that, right? If the price is there, we want the price. What we want is an alternate location. So if it can't find the price, instead capture this value, which is click to see price. And you'll see right now it's still not finding any values. Points to you if you can guess why. But the reason is that it's still using the same refinement. So we'll right click and go to refine capture text. And remember, it's only looking for something within dollar signs. So when we get to that fifth item, we can't find anything in dollar signs. So what we need is an alternate refine or capture definition that says if it cannot find anything within dollar signs, just capture whatever's there, which will be the click to see price words. So we'll first look for this one. If it can't find it, it will look at the second one. So we're going to save that. And now we'll see our data set looking even cleaner with the click to see price options as well. Now, some of you may be wondering, could we actually include that click as part of our flow? And we definitely could. One thing with Amazon is often you'll click to see price, and then you actually have to put in your cart and perform other things. So it adds a lot of complexity. It definitely is doable, and when we're done with the trainings, I'd encourage you to give it a shot. We won't have time to do that for our training though. One thing I did forget to mention at the start of the webinar, by the way, if you do have questions, I'm going to try to answer as many of them possible at the end of the training. I might not get to any. I might get to some of them, but the ones I don't, we'll try to send some personalized responses to or answer them on the next webinar. So just send those questions in through the chat on the webinar. Alrighty, so we've got price. We've got pretty much everything we want on this field. The next thing we wanted to do, right, was to come down to the bottom and navigate to the next page. So if we scroll down here, we'll see that next button. Right, and so as a normal user, we would generally click that next button to get to the next page. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to click next. Mozenda will recognize that it looks like a pagination button and give you this option to say page list. So we're going to choose page list. It's going to confirm that the words it's looking for is next, followed by an arrow sign, which is correct. So we're going to click create page list. And you'll see it just navigated us to page 2, loads the results. So the way that flow works in Mozenda is it will first go through and capture all these details for page 1, and then when it finishes, it will click that next page button and go to page 2. Now, if we remember, we made a decision that we were going to not use anything past page 2. So I'll show you how to do that, but first I want to show you something really quick, which we're getting this error message on price again. You can see once we get down to the 8th item on page 2, we see something that doesn't have a price. So let's scroll down. And here we go. This item right here, we can see it definitely has more buying choices, but it doesn't have a price. It doesn't have a click to see price. So we're kind of in an interesting predicament where we have to make a decision on if this amount's valid. Now we could right click, alternate location, and capture that value if nothing else is there. But because we know that our competitor is Amazon, if there's other buying choices, it's clearly coming from some other retailer. So we're going to decide that if it can't find this price and it can't find click to see price, then we don't want it. We don't want the more buying choices. So I'm going to come over here to the capture price option, right click it, and set it to optional. So to help you understand what that is doing, if we had left the agent as is and ran it, it would hit an error when it hit the capture price on one of the items that doesn't have a price, and it would stop your agent. You'd have to go look at it again to see why it's not getting what we want. Making it optional is just as it sounds. It's ignoring those types of errors. It's saying if it's there, capture it. If not, it's just an optional field. Don't worry about it. Now it's dangerous to do that though, because it's very common that that data is actually there. It's just in a different spot on different items. So you want to be careful that you're not too anxious to set a field to optional, because you could actually set up an agent with everything optional and then it'll run for weeks and you maybe don't look at the data too frequently, and before you know it, you realize it's not even capturing anything anymore because the website's moved around. So I would always recommend optional as a very last resort, only if you're absolutely certain that there are some products that will not have that value. Okay, so back to the page list. We're going to right click page list and go to properties and list processing. And we're going to tell it to only process one page of the list. So I know we said 2. Now this number can be a little bit misleading. To some, it kind of sounds like it means only capture the details on one page. What it's really saying is only paginate once. So get everything on the first page, paginate once, process one page, and then go capture everything on the next page. So if we wanted 3, we'd put a 2 here. If we wanted 10, we'd put a 9 here, and so forth. So we're just going to put 1 and click save. So now we're getting pretty good results. So we've got everything we want on this page, but we also know that we want to click into each item. So we're going to choose one of these and choose a click item, which will click that link and take us to a new page. And it's going to recognize that it's a link to a new page, which is why it's automatically creating page 2 of our agent. So this is abstracted away from the list. We're not going to have list items over here anymore. Everything will just be a capture, because this page will be loaded individually for every product, as opposed to on page 1 where it's loaded once and each product is then gathered from there. Sometimes you might see this unexpected page navigation detected if it takes a long time to load. If you can see the page in the background that it's where you wanted, you can feel comfortable just saying cancel here, because it definitely did load to the page that we want. It's just taking a few minutes to get there. Once again, due to all those requests going on in the background. I'm going to cancel because we don't actually need it to continue loading any further. And we're going to do a few things right off the bat. We're going to come up to this click item, and I will, so normally you'll see page 1, it navigated us to the page. It's not really supposed to do that, actually. Generally, it's because you've been doing a lot of refinements and interacting with the page, so Amazon is basically navigating when it shouldn't because of the way we've been building off it so far. So we're going to test the agent in a minute, and I'll reset it. But one of the first things I always want to recommend is that you go to the click item properties and you name the click item. Now, the reason I recommend that is because often, and it might seem silly right now, you're building the agent, you know that what it does is it clicks on the product link and takes you there. But I'll tell you, tap into some of the best of our users that they'll have agents with 3 or 4 click items, and they haven't given any indication of what they do. And so when the agent breaks several months down the road and they have to go back in and fix it, sometimes they'll call us for help, and we won't know what those click items do, and neither do our customers because they didn't mention what they are. So I will always recommend that if you're using a click item that you always name it so we remember what it's doing. You also notice on page 2, it automatically created this icon right here called Waits for Ajax to alter the page. It's also got our request blocking, block some navigation requests. So this Wait for Ajax, if we go to Properties, after loading this page, Ajax stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Essentially what's going on is it's saying after the page loads, there may be other actions that are occurring to load more content to the page or interact with the page. And Mozenda realizes that Amazon is doing that, and so automatically enables this setting to say wait a little bit for the whole page to load. Now when we optimize the agent, we're going to try to uncheck that box because we want it to take as little time as possible to load it up, but we'll get there down the road. So on page 2, we know we wanted to get these images, but this will require a little bit more complex maneuvering. So we're not going to do that today. We're going to do that tomorrow, either tomorrow or Wednesday. But in the meantime, we do know that we want the description. So we scroll down here. Here's those bullet points we saw. One thing you're going to see, if we just click on one of them, you'll see it's only highlighting one bullet point. We want all of them. So we're going to go slightly off to the side, and we'll see that it will capture everything. So we'll choose Capture Text. Once again, you don't need a list on this page because it loads each page individually for each product. And we're going to say Capture the Description. So our Capture Text Preview is only going to show, obviously, what's on this page because it can't see what's going on the other page. So here's a description. It's kind of hard to read, but the idea is that if this is what you want, you'll be able to parse through those keywords. So we also know that we wanted to scroll down to the bottom and look at, here's a pretty cool table that we could get. Once again, it's comparing it with other monitors, so we probably won't need that. But if we keep scrolling down, we'll see this technical details box. It's got brand name, item weight, product dimensions. Has a few other things as well. We're going to stick with just these ones. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click LG, capture text. We'll call it brand name and click save. Now this is working great, obviously, but one thing that might worry you right away is that you might say, okay, well, what if we get here and these details, this one's already added a few. What if these aren't always in the same order? What if brand name's not always first, followed by item weight and product dimensions? And that's a valid question to ask because that will happen often, especially with retail sites like this. So what we're going to do is a cool trick called associate nearby text. So instead of simply looking for the location on the page, because remember what it's doing in the background when you click on something is it's going through the HTML to try to find some pattern to connect you to LG. And because it's not a list, it's not necessarily looking for a pattern, it's looking for an exact location. So what happens if this moves down one, right? Then we're in a little bit of trouble. So what we're going to do instead is right-click brand name, go to location, and we'll say reassign current location. Well, not reassign, sorry. We're going to say associate nearby text. So as it says, I'm going to read this right here. It says, if the item is near text that uniquely identifies it, for example, brand name, associate the item with the nearby text to help the agent more accurately and consistently find the item on the page. So if this is a good example. If it had price, colon, and then the price, we could associate the value with the word price. So instead of just looking for LG somewhere using an exact address to it, we're going to look for the word brand name and then find whatever is next to that. So we're going to come click on brand name, and we'll see that it's still finding the same thing, but now it's got that blue indicating that it's finding this text and saying whatever's next to that is what we want. Now, a sneak peek into tomorrow's training, we're going to open up the XPaths window. And it doesn't matter if any of this makes sense right now, but essentially what's going on is you'll see that it's looking for the words brand name and then finding what's called a following sibling, which is the next thing over, essentially. So we're going to do that as well for the rest of these. We're going to capture item weight, capture text, and click save. And we'll click product dimensions, capture text, and click save. So we're getting the values right now. Now we want to go up to item weight, location, associate nearby text to those words, and save. And then same thing with product dimensions. Now this is a really, really useful mechanism for making sure that your data is consistent even when it moves around in a table. When we go over XPaths tomorrow, we'll find an even better way to do it. Because as good as this is, like I said, we're going to keep optimizing it. So right away, we've kind of reached the end right here. Besides the images, which I mentioned we'll try to get either tomorrow or the next day, we've built a very basic agent. It took us about 30 minutes, but we're going to test it out now. But before we do that, I'm going to save everything we've done so far so that it saves to our web console. Because remember, all we're doing right now is, and remember how I said we can change the field type? We're going to do that right now. We're going to change total reviews to a number. And I'll show you how we can do that in the web console on Wednesday. But we're going to save it here. Remember, the agent builder is for testing and building the agent and making sure that it can do what you want. And then the web console is where you actually get the data. So we'll test it right here in our last few minutes. Just make sure that it works okay, that there aren't any glaring issues. And I'll tell you right away that I don't feel overwhelmingly confident about the agent, but I do feel fairly confident. We feel like most of the details will be there. One red flag that might occur: what if some of the items don't have this table that has brand name, item weight, and product dimensions, right? So those are going to be issues we're going to have to hit in the upcoming days. But right now, my goal is to show you that we can build a very basic agent, in not that much time. So we're going to make sure that it works for a couple products, and as long as it does, we're going to swing over to the web console and change a few settings as well. But in the meantime, it's important to note that we built a very basic agent in about 30 minutes. We're going to spend the next 3 trainings, 3.5 or so, optimizing it. And you will see there's a lot of work that goes into optimizing it. But on our 5th training on Friday is where we're going to take another use case, similar use case, another website. We're going to scrape from Best Buy. And we're going to gather the same information, but we're going to do a fully optimized one in the same amount of time as what we did today. And I know it might seem a little bit daunting right now, but it really is true that once you learn some of these techniques and learn how to apply them as you go, it'll be really easy to build very reliable, maintainable agents that will get you the data that you need. And not to mention, we'll be able to make it a lot faster, because you can see we've been going for several minutes now, and it's only captured 1 so far. So when we speed it up with our request blocking, we're going to see some significant improvements there. But there we go. It's captured 2 items so far. I'm going to stop it there. I'm not totally convinced it won't error eventually. Very well might. So we'll keep that in mind. But in the meantime, we're going to come over to the web console and go to our agents list. And we'll see that we have our new agent, Webinar Amazon. So we'll go click on Webinar Amazon. And one really important thing I want to say is before you go run it, which we all want to do when we want to try to get data, we're going to come over here to the Tools menu, go to Harvesting Settings, and Error Handling, and we'll cover all this on Wednesday. And I'm sorry, by the way, I keep saying we'll cover something on other days. I'm not just pushing it off. It is planned for those days to be in an environment where it'll make the most sense. But for now, my recommendation is to set these drop downs to always be stop. what that's saying is if it hits an error, we want the agent to stop. We don't want it to try to continue. We don't want to try to ignore the errors. Sometimes we might want that if, for example, we just want as much data as possible, as quickly as possible, regardless of if it's, ideal. But it's safer to say, let it hit an error if there's an error. And yeah, it's a bummer because we'll have to go in and fix it. But it's better to have to fix an agent and get good data than to let it keep going and give you poor data. So by default, it's set to try to ignore those errors so that you can at least get some data to experiment with. I'm going to recommend you always change it to stop on errors. So I'm going to save that. Now, if you're wondering if you can change the default, you can. If you come over here to your account settings, there's an option here called Harvesting Settings Defaults. So you can come in here and change all of these settings so that it won't change any of your existing agents, but all of your new agents that you create will be built using the settings that you set here. So my recommendation, we're going to be done with this call in about a minute or two, go to your settings page and change these to stop, and click save. I swear it'll save you a lot of time in the end, even though it'll make you go back and fix your agents. It'll definitely be worth it, and it'll save you time in the long run. So with that, we're not going to run the agent today because it'll just take too long to do that. Plus, we've got some optimizations to make still. We don't have very much time. I see a few questions that got sent in. I probably won't have time to answer these right now. So what I'll do is I'll either save these up and answer them in the first few minutes tomorrow if I feel like they're valuable for everybody to hear. Otherwise, I think I'll just try to reach out to each of you individually or have members of the team reach out to each of you individually. So once again, tomorrow, make sure to register for tomorrow. For those of you who weren't here at the beginning, if you registered for today, that doesn't mean you're registered for tomorrow. It's not too late. You can register all the way up until a minute beforehand. But go register, click this second link and go register because they're different courses essentially to sign up for. But we'll be covering XPath tomorrow. So take a look at the agenda as well as the XPath Basics PowerPoint that I shared in that folder with you. If you haven't had a chance, take a look at it now. If I haven't sent it to you, I'm going to go match up who attended today with who I haven't sent it to yet and send that over to you. But tomorrow's XPath, it's probably going to be the hardest training. But don't get scared. It'll be really good, and it'll be a cool intro into what you can do when you start learning some of the more tougher parts of what Mozenda can do. So with that, thanks everybody who joined today. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the week with each of you. Send some questions over if you have them. Feel free to email afterwards, and we'll just look forward to meeting tomorrow. Thanks again.